Middle Eastern BBC reporters have just come out and attempted to justify Hamas's slaughter of men, women and children in Israel. Pathetic. Jeff is still under the weather, so I'm standing in again. According to reports in the Daily Telegraph, the Nancy BBC is doing an urgent investigation yeah, right, into endorsements made by their journalists towards comments where Hamas was compared to freedom fighters. And some of these journalists also made highly anti-Semitic comments themselves. Well, would you Adam and Eve it? Anti-Semitic comments coming from a left-wing organisation? Who interviewed them for their jobs? Jeremy Corbyn? Anyway, you know how the liberal lefty journalists at the BBC are so quick to attack the social media content of anyone who is slightly right of Joseph Stalin in their political views? Well, let's take a look at what they like and they say on their social media. According to the Tory graph, Mahmoud Shelib, a senior BBC journalist, tweeted something very suspect that read, "I see in front of me on Al Jazeera their so-called civilians are standing armed alongside the police and shooting because they basically don't have any civilians among the youth. This is what the ignorant often don't know. I'm in favour of fighting them with love. Yes, this is a solution." He said that, followed by a laughing emoji. That's right, folks, the good old impartial BBC, who will love their Mr. Gill's statue. Yes, your compulsory licence fee pays for the wages of these so-called journalists. If you're going to work for what is in effect a taxpayer-funded organisation like the BBC, then you need to be impartial and squeaky clean. Oh, but neither Jeff nor yourself are impartial, I hear you cry. Well, we are not taxpayer-funded, but don't give me any ideas, we will tax the lot of you. Back to point. Then once again, according to the Telegraph, there is a lady called Aya Hossam, who is supposed to be a BBC broadcast journalist at BBC Arabic. And she did the usual, allegedly, she did the usual BBC journalist liking of an anti-Semitic tweet that said, "Every member of the Zionist entity served in the army at some point in his life, whether men or women, and they all had victims of explicit violations. This term, civilians, applies to the animals and pets that live there, and they are not seriously at fault." And then she went on to retweet a message with the line, the Zionist must know that he will live as a thief and a usurper. If she liked and shared such tweets, it's no wonder she got a job at the BBC, is it? Speaking of the BBC, I don't see Gary Lineker inviting Israelis across the channel and to go and live in his home. Can't think why. Now then, you lot, I know you all like a good old debate, so let's get this started, shall we? But first, I would like to ask, what kind of a country do we live in, where a man is arrested near Downing Street for carrying a Union Jack flag, whilst elsewhere, at the same time, nearby, people waving Palestinian flags and shouting anti-Semitic hate speech and openly supporting terrorism, they're left alone. Why is that? I have read so many of you comment on the historical background to the formation of Israel regarding the Balfour Declaration, as if Jeff and myself have never heard of such a thing. And you're waving the declaration as if it is a smoking gun in your hands that proves Israel stole land from the indigenous people of Palestine, who many of you believe had always been there. Well, my friends, I have to say, if that is you, I have a confession to make, because that is a lie that I myself used to believe. And if you knew my genetic and family background, you would know that the Jews are the last people on earth you would expect me to support. Yes, my biological mother's side is English, Scottish and Norwegian. No Welsh, by the way. That's another matter, that is. But my biological father's side, well, it would come as a bit of a surprise to many of you. Ben Shapiro has done a brilliant video entitled "You're Being Lied to About Israel and Palestine, Facts, Episode 5. And I suggest you all watch it before commenting here. It is a brilliant bite-sized summary. The one fact that I forgot to mention in yesterday's video, which Ben brilliantly pointed out, is that between 1948 and 1951, over 800,000 Jews were expelled from lands in the Middle East alone and taken in by Israel. Yet Israel is always singled out as an apartheid state. Let's not look at all the other states in the Middle East. Oh, no. Oh, wait. Some people say that they are all controlled by Mossad and the CIA, and the Middle East would be otherwise peaceful were it not for the state of Israel existing. and the Middle East would be filled with unicorns and rainbows if only Israel and Mossad wasn't there and getting involved in everything. Ever heard of the Ottoman Empire? No? Oh, well. It predates both Mossad and the creation of the State of Israel. And Zionism. Just ask the Armenians how peaceful the region was before the State of Israel was brought back into being. Yes, the Armenian genocide, which killed over 1.5 million Armenians. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to ask you to do some research here and find out where the first generational refugees that are in Gaza originated from. And to those of you that think that the Jews should leave their historical ancestral home of Israel in order to end the conflict, I have these questions for you. Question number 1. Which safe place would you send the Jews if they were forced out of Israel? To Europe? America? Russia? China? Please, if you think that Jews would be safe in any of those places, you are not stupid, you are deeply stupid. The pro-Palestinian marches across the world over the past few days calling for the extermination of the Jews should give you an idea of how safe the Jewish people are outside of their homeland, especially with the change in demographics in both Europe and America. For the Jews to leave Israel, it would mean their extermination. So with that in mind, question number 2 is, do you still want the Jews to leave Israel in order to end the conflict there, in full knowledge that they would almost certainly face extermination? I pray you reply to this question with either the answer no or with utter silence. There is no question as to the Jews historically having lived in Israel. Aside from the Jewish and Christian accounts, the Romans and contemporary accounts chronicled their time there. And the archaeological ground is littered with buildings and relics from antiquity documenting and validating their claim to the land. So question number 3 is, please provide historical background and the name of famous historical Palestinian kings and leaders who identified as Palestinian in antiquity. Question number 4, the land of Palestine was named by whom, and why was it given the name Palestine? Question number 5, Israel is the only democracy in the region and acts as a buffer against, let's say, the more extreme ideologies of the world flooding into Europe. And goodness knows, plenty of them have arrived on our shores already. And with that in mind, what do you think will happen if Israel is no more? Maybe peace in the Middle East and the more extreme elements of a certain ideology will leave and return to their ancestral countries? Ah, but you're playing into the hands of the Zionists, who want nothing more than to continue with their global and regional expansionist plots, I hear you cry. Well, if this is the best that a shadowy international group of elites can do in order to expand Israel by just taking a small slither of land called Gaza and adding it to an area, to a country roughly the size of Wales, I mean, I really don't think they're very good at playing the role of tyrannical overlords, and my cat is more devious and cunning than them, and I don't even have a cat. I mean, if you want to talk about true expansionist plots, you need to be looking more towards Iran right now, who are funding the war on two fronts of Israel's borders. Look, I have gone for what some of you might call as a confrontational approach to stir up a debate in this video. And that's precisely my intention, because we're supposed to live in a free society and be able to talk to one another and have our say, just as you should be able to have your say, especially if you disagree with what I have had to say. So if you disagree with me, put me to rights in the comment section and I will read, and maybe you can change my mind. Anyway, Let me tell you now, I do feel extreme pity for the people in Gaza who are being played and used and moved about as pawns on a chessboard by Hamas and whoever is controlling Hamas. However, can anyone ever wish death and destruction upon the innocent, and especially upon the women and children in Gaza? Really? How can anyone wish for innocent people to die? Keep loving, keep praying for peace and for the safety of the children of Gaza and Israel and anywhere else where children are not hearing lullabies at night, but explosions as they go to sleep. So it is here that I would like to place a counterbalance in this debate and turn the mirror around. And that is because I have heard people saying that there are no innocent people in Gaza because they voted for Hamas, and therefore they should pay the price for that. Well, if you can call the elections in Gaza, how long ago were they? My goodness, years ago. If you can call those democratic, you have a lot to learn about the situation in the Middle East. But also, let's look at this without extreme hypocrisy and armchair expertism here in the UK. Blaming the people of Gaza for the actions of Hamas is very similar to blaming us in the UK for the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan, which resulted in the sum total of nothing except for hundreds of thousands of dead civilians, all killed with money from our taxes. So we are as complicit in those deaths as the people of Gaza are in the deaths of those terrible deaths that took place in Israel, albeit from a different mechanism, but all serving the same military-industrial complex. When Jeremy Corbyn is pretending to be the friend of the people of the Middle East, please don't forget that this man and his other far left-wing buddies that were entrenched in Tony Blair's Labour Party, they all legitimised the Iraq invasion by remaining Labour MPs and upheld Blair's majority in government. I didn't see Corbyn resigning out of disgust. No, he remained a Labour MP and thus bolstered Tony Blair's position. And we, the people of Britain, we did not rise up and overthrow Tony Blair's regime as it dropped bombs on innocent civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan. So to judge the people of Gaza in that context for doing exactly what we did with our acquiescence is a little hypocritical. I just had to add that because we all need to check ourselves and remain focused when pontificating on matters we don't and can never understand unless placed in the position of those we are attempting to judge. I have always loved that song by Depeche Mode with the line, "Try walking in my shoes, you'd stumble in my footsteps." Now, the part of me that is utterly enraged by the acts on both sides of this conflict would love to engage in this endless cycle of hate that's going on. But that is the part of me that thinks he knows right from wrong and has well and truly had a good munch from the tree of the fruit of the knowledge between good and evil. And that part of me suffers from the same prideful vanity that, anyone with a platform has. And that is a side of all of us that is best left buried. So I will leave it there for today because, like each one of you watching this, I am a flawed human being just as you are. And I find it counterintuitive to start a heated debate. Oh, we need one of those as well. A heated debate without ending the heated debate. It's a bit like stoking a fire when camping without pouring water on it at the end, just as it has done its job. Yes, I would love to take a harder side on this, and believe me, I could, and it would wind you all up into a frenzy. But what's the point in that? One day, you and I will have to sit and be judged. But in this day and age of misinformation, we all need context and a contextual shift and reframing of the news, which is my job. So the context that I want to reframe for you is that of is to say that the journalists who present the news to you are not to be trusted. But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater at the same time. And we all need to be highly discerning at this time and question everything and everyone. Oh, especially Jeff and myself. We all learn from each other. But the only thing that will end this is love. And it's the type of love that I'm afraid is not found in the faiths of those leaders who are currently at war. Look, Jeff is still battling the lurgy, so I'm afraid you are stuck with me until he is better. Hopefully not too long. Maybe tomorrow, you don't know. We were hoping to launch our Sunday show here, where Jeff and I would present a much longer show, but unfortunately Jeff is pretending to be ill, so I am having to cover for him this week. Just as I write some of what Jeff says, in his monologues, the incredibly handsome and clever Jeff is writing some of what I say. But the both of us are chomping at the bit to get back to work on our new Sunday show, where you can see both Jeff and I arguing and fighting and shouting at each other at the end of the video in a heated debate, just as we do when we make all these videos. Ideally, I will be co-presenting just on Sundays and focusing on that longer show, but I'm afraid Jeff isn't clockwork. And yes, I know you all miss him. So, with the way Jeff is croaking at the moment, I will almost certainly be seeing more of you this week, more than was planned, as I stand in for the irreplaceable Jeff Taylor. Now then, leave your musings in the comment section below. We love reading them. And my love to you all, and God bless you all, especially to all those of you who disagree with me. My love to you. Bye for now.